smaller.
Like something.
Is garden home or?
Bonsoir tout le monde. Good evening, everyone. We'll get this meeting started. Item 1, roll call. All members of council are present. I'll ask everyone to please stand for the prayer and the national anthem. Attendu que le Canada est fondé sur des principes qui reconnaissent la suprématie de Dieu et la primauté du droit, prenons un moment de réflexion personnelle. Whereas Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law, let us take a moment of personal reflection. Merci tout le monde. Item 4, additions, deletions, or amendments. Anything from members of council? No? Item 5, adoption of the agenda. Motion to approve the agenda as presented. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Larin, seconded by Councillor Bisson. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Item 6, déclaration d'intérêt pécuniaire. Ça va aucun. Item 7, adoption of minutes. Regular council minutes of February 3rd, 2020. Motion to approve the following minutes as presented. Do you need a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Tarnowski, seconded by Councillor Associate. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Item 8, presentations, we have none. Item 9, delegations, pétitions. Délégation présentée par Marie-Noëlle Lanthier, conseillère municipale à la Nation et présidente de LFPR, présentation du projet vers la parité dans Prescott-Russell, visant à encourager les femmes à s'avancer en politique municipale. Madame Lanthier.
Merci beaucoup. Merci au conseil de m'accueillir. OK, on est là. Alors, je vais passer rapidement au projet comme tel. Alors, comme vous avez mentionné, le but du projet, c'est d'attirer plus de femmes en politique municipale. Et si on peut passer à la prochaine... oui, alors si on peut regarder les statistiques, si on peut retourner en arrière pour les statistiques, on voit juste là, lorsqu'on se compare à d'autres régions, que ce soit en Ontario ou au Québec ou au Canada, on s'aperçoit que la représentation féminine sur les conseils municipaux dans Prescott-Russell est plus basse que partout ailleurs. Donc ça, c'est une des choses qui nous a incité à démarrer le projet. La prochaine. Alors, comme je mentionnais, en 2014, on avait 20 candidates à travers les municipalités de Prescott-Russell, dont 12 étaient élues. Et en 2018, on avait 29 candidates, donc on avait plus, mais par contre, on a encore juste 12 qui ont été élues. Et dans une des municipalités, il y a 6 femmes qui sont présentées comme conseillères et aucune d'entre elles n'ont été élues. Alors ça, c'est une des choses qui nous a motivés. L'autre chose aussi, c'est évident que si on n'a pas un bassin assez important de femmes qui siègent au sein des conseils municipaux, ça rend ça difficile pour les grands partis politiques quand ils recrutent des candidats de recruter des femmes, parce que souvent ils vont les recruter, puis je pense qu'à Russell, vous connaissez bien ça, ils vont les recruter à même les conseils municipaux. Alors c'est un aspect important pour les autres paliers de politique. Et finalement, l'annonce de la Fédération canadienne des municipalités l'été passé, disant qu'il y avait des fonds disponibles pour un projet de démonstration. Et c'était un montant de 5 000 $ qui était disponible. Et il fallait que les municipalités ou le groupe de municipalités travaillent avec un groupe féminin. Alors, c'est à ce moment-là qu'on s'est associé au conseil de Prescott-Russell pour le projet. Alors, la prochaine. Alors, qu'est-ce qu'on entend par le projet? D'abord, on parle d'une campagne de sensibilisation. Alors, la campagne, on l'a appelée la politique au féminin, pourquoi pas moi? Women in Politics, why not me? Et ce qui est inclus dans cette campagne-là, c'est d'avoir 2 vidéos qu'on veut créer pour sensibiliser la population, mais aussi pour cibler les femmes. On veut aussi développer une boîte à outils en ligne qui va permettre aux femmes aussi d'être mieux outillées et intéressées à s'avancer en politique municipale. On parle aussi de travailler avec les conseils scolaires pour pouvoir justement les faire des témoignages dans les écoles secondaires, pour que les jeunes filles aussi aient des modèles féminins en politique au niveau local. Et aussi créer une cellule de co-développement professionnel pour aider celles qui sont déjà en politique à vraiment augmenter leur capacité et leur efficacité au niveau du rôle qu'elles jouent au sein des conseils municipaux. Et aussi créer au moins annuellement une activité de réseautage pour permettre non seulement à celles qui sont là de se rencontrer, mais aussi qui puisse permettre à celles qui sont intéressées de se lancer en politique, de venir nous rencontrer, puis de réserver aussi du temps lors de cet événement-là pour une formation. Alors, j'aimerais qu'on joue la petite vidéo en haut. Je pense que ça explique très bien le projet, puis ça explique le pourquoi du projet aussi. Je sais que peut-être certains d'entre vous l'avaient vu, mais je pense que ça pourrait être intéressant pour les gens du public.
Il ne faut pas voir la parité en politique comme quelque chose de nécessaire, il faut voir la parité en politique comme quelque chose de naturel.
C'est clair que la parité, c'est encore un enjeu, principalement dans le domaine municipal.
On n'est pas encore assez présente.
Parce qu'il faut que les instances décisionnelles soient représentatives de la population, sinon la démocratie, ça fonctionne.
Ça fait pas de sens qu'il n'y a pas de parité, il n'y a pas plus d'hommes que de femmes au Québec.
Je pense que les femmes, on a pris beaucoup plus de place dans la politique municipale ou dans la politique plus courte, mais on a encore beaucoup de place à prendre.
Je crois qu'il y a des avancées pour les femmes en politique. Chaque année, il y a de plus en plus de femmes qui s'impliquent au palier municipal. Et évidemment, c'est ça qui amène nos organisations à se transformer et être plus attrayant pour eux.
En politique, généralement, la voix des hommes est plus forte et tend à étouffer celle des femmes.
On dit que la politique municipale est un monde d'hommes, parce qu'il y a trop d'hommes.
Ça a été un monde d'hommes, mais on est en train de le transformer pour que ça devienne un monde pour tous.
Ça veut dire que les jeunes commencent à s'impliquer, à s'imprégner, comprendre que le milieu municipal, c'est l'endroit où on peut changer des choses.
Puis en 2.5, c'est encourageant, ça prouve qu'il y a un changement de mentalité.
Je trouve ça vraiment rassurant que les jeunes femmes s'impliquent, se lancent en politique.
À ce taux-là, je pense que notre génération au moins monte les hommes.
Comment faire pour qu'il y ait plus de femmes qui se présentent en politique municipale? Je dirais démystifier le rôle d'un élu, de montrer que c'est pas sorcier.
Informer, conscientiser la population, c'est le meilleur moyen pour atteindre la parité.
Selon moi, il faut unir les femmes déjà impliquées et sensibiliser la population.
On vise la parité en 2021.
Pour 2021, on vise la zone paritaire.
La parité, c'est pour 2021.
Visons la parité en 2021. On est capable de le faire.
Alors, comme vous pouvez voir, c'est une vidéo qui a été préparée par la Fédération québécoise des municipalités. Et ce qu'on a remarqué aussi dans notre travail, évidemment, vous avez vu dans les statistiques qui sont pas mal plus avancées que nous au niveau de la parité, mais simplement parce
lors des
qu'ils ont
élections
travaillé
municipales
plus
dans les
fort,
36 760.
à l'atteindre. Donc, la prochaine...
Juste faire les risques pour les femmes.
D'accord. Alors, je pense qu'on arrive à la fin. Parce que dans le fond, ce qu'on veut, ce que je voulais ce soir, ce que je vous propose, parce que là, on a reçu 5 000 $ de la Fédération canadienne des municipalités. Les comtés unis aussi ont adopté à l'unanimité leur appui, ont offert leur appui au projet et une contribution de 5 000 $. Et récemment, la FESFO a aussi contribué de 2 500 $ au projet. Pour nous, oui, c'était important d'avoir l'appui des comtés, bien sûr, mais on voulait s'assurer de venir rencontrer chacune des municipalités pour, premièrement, leur parler du projet et avoir votre appui. Puis quand je veux dire avoir votre appui, c'est pas un appui financier, mais un appui, on parlait des outils tantôt qu'on voulait développer, des vidéos qu'on veut créer. On veut que les municipalités, une fois qu'ils vont être faites, puissent les mettre sur leur site web, puissent les partager sur leur page Facebook, puis vraiment participer de cette façon-là à la campagne. Alors, c'est ça qu'on vous demande ce soir. Et aussi, évidemment, vous avez l'opportunité d'avoir quelqu'un du conseil qui puisse siéger sur le comité, parce que c'est géré par un comité de leadership féminin qui s'appelle Politique au féminin, qui regroupe 5 conseillères des différentes municipalités et la maire d'Hawkesbury, Paul Lassie.
Parfait. Merci beaucoup pour la présentation. On a une résolution en avant de nous. Je ne sais pas si les membres du conseil ont des questions. Councillor Associate.
Merci pour la présentation. J'ai encouragé des femmes d'avancer en municipal politique. Oui.
Great.
And est-ce que cet report en bilingue?
Oui, la campagne va être bilingue. Les outils vont être bilingues. C'est juste que leadership féminin, on travaille en français et puis on est juste des bénévoles. On n'a pas d'employés pour faire ce travail-là. Puis aussi, on n'a pas d'autres financements. Mais présentement, on regarde aussi à aller chercher de l'argent du statut de la femme. And we've explained also, and we've talked to Minister Joly last year at the federal government with official languages so we can get some support to make sure that we can translate all the materials that will be online. The other thing too is that it's great that in Quebec they're ahead of us, so they have a lot of tools, but they only have them in French. So we need to be able to have the resources to do the translation. But we're working with our MP, MP Drouin, to make sure that we can access that funding. Otherwise, we'll find another way, but of course that would be the easiest way. But yes, it will be bilingual. And whenever we have those networking meetings, again, there's enough of us that we can gather the group and then split into different groups. So we can have one group in English and one group in French.
Merci beaucoup.
You're welcome.
Merci. D'autres questions? Parfait. Commentaire de l'administration, du coup? Non? Ok. Parfait. Ben, je pense que tu auras le support pour les médias sociaux, les choses comme ça, partager l'information. Je pense pas que c'est un trouble. Je pense pas que le conseil ait de la misère avec ça. Mais on n'a pas l'habitude d'approuver quelque chose qui est demandé la même soir parce qu'on aime ça avoir la chance d'y penser, mais en bon français, on n'a plus.
Merci beaucoup. Merci
Parfait.
au Parti collègue.
Merci beaucoup. Conseiller Alain?
So I have a question, I think it's more for Mr. Lejic, is, yeah, we have an engagement to say, yeah, we'll help out with social media, stuff like that. Who's gonna validate or verify the information that we're gonna support or put through without, like, there has to be some sort of a check and balance, right? We can't just say we're gonna take whatever comes from this committee and post it off if no one's looked at it, right? Because it could be something that's,
Monsieur Leduc?
Bonsoir, mon conseil. I believe that we'll have our communications department just share it, not review and post. So we're just going to like it and share it. So this way we don't get engaged into validating any information there. It's not our job. If we were to do that, then we'd have to rewrite something else. So we're just sharing and liking.
Similar to when we share posts from the United Counties or posts from the OPP, we're just sharing it to our users who are maybe not connected to this group. So, a good point. You know, we don't necessarily want to put something that we haven't approved. Right? We're just sharing the information. So, okay. D'autres questions? Parfait. Merci beaucoup. Prochaine délégation. Délégation présentée par. Excuse-moi, c'est Camille, j'avais Céline dans ma famille, je savais que c'était pas ça. Camille Péric, c'est ça? Oui, c'est ça. Parfait. Au nom de la Fédération de la jeunesse franco-ontarienne, le FESFO, pour les 27e Jeux Franco-Ontariens. Bonjour.
Bonjour. Bonjour. Merci de me recevoir.
Donc, moi, c'est Camille. Je suis gestionnaire de communication et de liaison à la FESFO.
Et moi, je suis Eric, je suis un employé à la Fédération aussi.
Donc, on peut... on peut tout de suite aller à la slide sur les Jeux Franco-Ontariens. Donc, je crois que c'est la 4e. Ouais, la prochaine. Donc, les Jeux Franco-Ontariens, c'est un événement que la communauté d'Embrun va accueillir dans quelques mois. C'est le plus grand, depuis 1994, c'est le plus grand rassemblement provincial et annuel de la jeunesse franco-ontarienne. C'est organisé par la Fédération de la jeunesse franco-ontarienne et par la communauté qui est hôtesse des Jeux. Donc, les Jeux, c'est 600 jeunes pour 4 jours d'activité qui participent dans 8 grands volets. Il y a AGA Quiz, il y a art du cirque, art visuel, danse, improvisation, médias, musique et sport. C'est une grande célébration de la francophonie pour les participantes et aussi pour la communauté qui est hôtesse de cet événement.
Comme mentionné, les Jeux franco-ontariens auront lieu du 15 au 18 mai 2020. Le site principal, c'est l'école secondaire catholique d'Embrun, mais on va aussi utiliser les écoles nourricières pour avoir nos différents volets. Comme mentionné plus tôt, c'est plus de 600 jeunes et 100 membres de notre équipe d'animation des 4 coins de la province qui vont venir à Embrun pour ces 4 journées de programmation. En total, c'est plus de 16 000 heures de bénévolat pour la préparation de l'événement. C'est de nombreuses activités communautaires ainsi que des performances artistiques offertes par des professionnels qui sont offerts à la communauté d'Embrun tout à fait gratuitement. Les Jeux, c'est aussi organisé avec l'appui de nombreux partenaires, dont les conseils scolaires, des organismes et des entreprises de la communauté, ainsi que des grands leaders, dont Félix Saint-Denis, Philippe Ryan, Jacques Héroux, Paul Roy, Rachel Laplante, Daniel Pierre Boudreau, Lisa Godard et Estelle Patnaud.
Donc, dans le fond, nous, on est ici pour vous parler un peu ce qu'on aurait besoin de la municipalité de Russell. Dans le fond, pour la réalisation des Jeux, on a une grande scène qui est habituellement dans l'aréna de la communauté. Donc, la FESFO, on aurait besoin d'avoir accès complet à l'édifice de l'aréna d'Embrun du 13 au 19 mai 2020. Puis, en plus, on aurait besoin de 900 chaises dans cette arène-là pour accueillir justement les 600 participants, mais aussi des gens de la communauté qui peuvent participer à tout, tout est ouvert pour la communauté, donc ils peuvent participer à toutes nos cérémonies pendant la fin de semaine. Puis, nous donner accès à toute autre ressource qui pourrait être utile à la FESFO. Donc, on aurait accès complet à l'aréna. On aurait aussi besoin d'avoir accès au centre communautaire Camille Piché, puis le parc qui est adjacent à l'aréna et le parc communautaire. Et ça, le centre communautaire, on aurait besoin du 14 au 18 mai 2020. Puis les parcs, on aurait besoin des parcs le samedi et le dimanche des Jeux Franco-Ontariens, donc le 16 et le 17 mai 2020, de 9 à 5. Là. Puis, on a déjà fait cette demande à la ville il y a quelques mois. Puis, le tout, c'est d'une valeur de 8 000 d'avoir accès à tous ces lieux-là.
Question, conseiller Lorette?
Ça, c'est la fin de semaine qu'on a rien travaillé, ça?
Ouais.
Cette fin de semaine.
La longue fin de semaine de mai.
OK. Je ne sais pas s'il y a d'autres événements normalement. Je ne sais pas s'il y a d'autres événements normalement cette fin de semaine-là dans le parc. Il n'y en a pas.
Okay. D'autres questions? Conseiller Tanaski?
Ça va les 600 jeunes qui vont descendre sur Vendée, ça vient de toute la province. Où est-ce qu'ils vont être hébergés, ces jeunes-là?
Oui, présentement, on regarde à l'hébergement à Castle-Mune pour maximiser les espaces qu'on a ici en Brun pour pouvoir passer le plus de temps ici. Donc, juste pour vous donner un exemple, la discipline, le volet improvisation a besoin d'une salle de classe. Fait que tous ces volets-là vont avoir lieu en Brun. Puis le soir, après nos cérémonies, on va se déplacer à Castle-Mune pour le dodo. Puis le lendemain matin, on revient ici en Brun pour le déjeuner. Mais la majorité.
Il y a pas 600 personnes qui vont rester à Castle-Mune. Je sais que l'hôtel, on est passé.
Dans les 2 écoles secondaires.
Ah, dans les écoles secondaires. OK.
Continue.
On va changer de slide. Donc, voici des bonnes raisons, des grandes raisons pour appuyer les Jeux franco-ontariens. Donc, c'est une occasion pour vous de participer activement avec la jeunesse francophone et avec les jeunes d'Embrun et surtout de partout en province, au cœur d'un événement qui est par et pour les jeunes. Les Jeux franco-ontariens ont déjà eu lieu à Rocklin, Hawkesbury dans le passé et ainsi que Castle-Mune. On a aussi eu Cornwall dans les débuts. C'est une occasion d'être un modèle pour les jeunes pour démontrer l'importance d'investir dans les activités qui sont bénéfiquement économiques pour la région. Une occasion de faire la promotion de votre ville pour les leaders jeunesse et les décideurs de demain. C'est une occasion pour répondre aux besoins d'une communauté active comme celle d'Embrun-Russell. C'est une occasion pour briller devant les jeunes de partout en province.
Puis, côté visibilité, c'est certainement des documents qu'on vous a envoyés. Oui. Mais avec l'appui de la ville, la FESFO est prête à donner la plus haute visibilité, une des plus hautes visibilités à la ville. Donc, vous allez avoir une excellente visibilité provinciale et aussi locale. Je peux lire un peu la visibilité.
On a vu la visibilité dans le document. On comprend très bien qu'est-ce que ça implique. De notre côté, je pense qu'il y a un impact budgétaire. Vous avez mentionné 8 000, je suis certain qu'il y a eu des discussions entre l'administration et la FESFO, mais ce serait de savoir comment ça va impacter le budget municipal. Je pense que ça devrait être quelque chose qui revient au conseil à la prochaine réunion pour faire certain de qu'est-ce qu'on vote dessus. Je pense que vous comprenez ça, c'est normal. J'aimerais ça dire oui, aujourd'hui, voici l'argent, ou voici les salles, puis il n'y a pas de trouble, mais comme leader municipal, il faut qu'on fasse certaines des décisions, le contexte qui va avec aussi. Y a-t-il d'autres questions des membres du conseil? Councillor Tanaski?
Juste au niveau des jeux comme tels, comment ils sont fondés, financés, merci.
Oui, donc on reçoit du financement de la province, du ministère de l'Éducation ainsi que Patrimoine Canada. Avec l'aide du comité d'appui local et CAMI, on trouve des commandites, beaucoup de commandites locales, mais aussi des institutions postsecondaires au travers de la province, c'est les frais d'inscription que les participants, les jeunes payent pour participer.
Fait que c'est un projet à but non lucratif.
Oui,
Les personnes qui
exactement.
bénéficient de Merci.
Autre question? Councillor Lorrain?
This is more for Madame Guitar. Do we have 900 chairs? Because they're asking for 900 chairs, so.
Madame Guitar?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. No, we don't. And another thing, the chairs that we have are in the community hall. I don't think we would like to move all those chairs to the arena. I think those plastic chairs would be more appropriate because you want to have that all the same setting. So definitely we'd have to rent 900 chairs. So there will be a cost attached to that. So when Camille mentioned the $8,000, that included the fees for rental. So the chairs, we were not
That
aware of that.
included the rental chairs?
No, the chairs were not included.
Oh.
Just the facility
So
costs.
when I come back with the report, I'll have to include the rental fee for the chairs, plus the rental fees. And also when we have discussed for the rental fees, the diamonds were not included in that, so we'll have to include the diamonds for the, because obviously we want to rent the whole park. You don't want to have a baseball game going while you're having your game, so we'll have to rent the whole park.
See that?
So has any of this been budgeted in the community grants? So we'll have to find the money
Yeah,
somewhere
like,
for this?
I will present you a
Options.
possibility, if we take it out from the community grants, how much we'd be left for the remaining of the year. If not, well, we'll have to look into other coffers to find out.
Thank you.
Parfait, merci beaucoup. Merci, Lucie.
Je sais que les écoles aussi ont beaucoup de chaises de plastique, que je sais que des fois que peut avoir des bénévoles de la région pour les amener au lieu de les louer. Ça peut être de quoi? Parce que je sais qu'il y a d'autres activités, l'école Castor avait été parée en prêté, l'école de Saint-Jean, tout ça.
Je pense qu'il y a définitivement des façons de travailler avec la communauté et les différentes organisations pour faire ça comme ça marche.
C'est juste voir que avant de louer, il y a peut-être ces options-là.
So, like I said, we were not aware of the chairs before when we received the package. So we could definitely look into further options for the rental of the chairs.
Merci beaucoup. Monsieur Leduc?
Monsieur le maire, Camille, est-ce que les gens du public vont pouvoir assister, mais en dehors des 900 chaises, parce qu'il y a de l'espace aussi sur les espaces sur les côtés, vous allez mettre un stage en avant ou vous allez utiliser le maximum d'espace dans l'aréna?
Oui, donc on a une estrade souvent. L'estrade est comme au pied de la porte de la Zamboni.
Okay.
Puis après ça, les chaises sont toutes comme cordées en avant de l'estrade. Habituellement, il n'y a personne dans les gradins, juste pour un aspect de sécurité, puis essayer d'avoir tous nos gens comme sur la surface de béton.
Okay.
Il y a de l'espace.
Oui, il y a beaucoup d'espace.
Le public, oui.
Parfait. On a la demande. L'administration va être capable de ramener un rapport à la prochaine réunion. Ça...
Oui, puis aussi, j'aimerais aussi travailler sur la capacité maximale qu'on peut avoir sur la surface de béton, parce que comme M. Leduc a mentionné, si on a déjà 600 jeunes, plus 100 bénévoles, on est déjà rendu à 700. So, il va peut-être avoir de l'espace pour le public général, mais pas un très grand nombre.
On veut faire certain que l'événement est le plus accessible et sécuritaire possible pour tout le monde. D'autres commentaires?
Je pense que
Il veut dire quelque chose.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Moi, j'ai le plaisir de créer les Jeux Franco-Ontariens il y a 26 ans. Je travaille encore avec cette belle gang-là. Ce qu'il faut comprendre aussi, c'est que toute une programmation, c'est pas juste dans l'aréna. Les écoles vont recevoir des centaines de visiteurs. C'est notre monde de chez nous qui va être en vedette. Donc, tous les matchs d'improvisation, les finales d'art visuel, tout ça, là, à chaque fois qu'on fait des Jeux franco-ontariens, c'est toute la communauté, 3-4 générations ensemble, qui vont être regroupées. Il y a un après-midi familial. Il y a un spectacle le samedi soir pour les jeunes où il y a moins de chaises, donc on peut accueillir plus de monde aussi. Donc, au-delà, on parle d'environ 600 participants, une centaine d'animateurs, mais il reste toujours donc une couple de centaines de places assises dans l'aréna au point de départ. Puis en plus de ça, il y a plein de choses qui se passent qui ne sont pas dans l'aréna, mais dans les écoles. Donc, une grosse programmation ongoing pendant 4 jours pour tous les groupes et toute la famille. Ça a beaucoup de retombées de ce côté-là aussi.
Oui, parfait. Ça fait d'autres questions? Non? Merci beaucoup pour la présentation. Puis l'administration va ramener quelque chose à la prochaine réunion au conseil. Puis après ça, ils vont être capables d'aviser c'est quoi la décision.
Parfait.
Parfait, merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
Next item, item 10, consent items. Motion that all items listed are consent items be received as presented. Item A, the minutes of the Environmental Advisory Committee of December 4th, 2019. Item B, the minutes of the United Counties of Prescott-Russell, November 27th, 2019. Item C, minutes of the Township of Russell Library Board, November 21st, 2019. And item D, minutes of the Russell Historical Society of January 13th, 2020. And the Paylist of January 2020. Need a mover and a seconder to put on the table. Moved by Conseiller Brisson, seconded by Councillor Ternowski.
There was item F.
Item F, proclamation raising a flag for the Scouts and Girl Guides Week of 2020. You want to separate it, item?
I just have a question on one of them. I don't have to change anything. I just wanted to ask either one of the two council members that are sitting on the committee.
So let's just pull it out, it'll be easier that way.
Okay.
So which item is it? Environmental?
No, library.
Library. So we'll remove item C. So mover and seconder to remove item C, moved by Conseiller Lanthier, seconded by Councillor Associé. We'll vote on everything except C. All those in favor?
Can I ask a question?
On item C?
No, sorry, okay, on item B.
So you want to pull item B separate then?
I'd like to just ask a question.
Then you gotta pull it out.
You gotta pull it out. So we remove item B and C. Need a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Conseiller Lanthier, seconded by Councillor Ternowski. Everybody in favor of removing B and C? Okay. B and C is removed. Vote on everything else. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. So let's start with item B then. Minutes of the United Counties, Prescott-Russell, November 27, 2019. Monsieur Leduc?
Monsieur le maire, je sais que je suis pas membre du conseil, mais j'aurais voulu poser une question sur l'item D.
Right, okay. For the mover and the seconder for removing B and C, are we okay if we add D? We're okay if we add D? All those in favor of adding D? Okay, we'll start with B and we'll work our way down. So we essentially approved A, E, and F, and now we're going with item B. Minutes of the United Counties, Prescott-Russell, November 27, 2019. Councillor Ternowski, you had a question?
So I was just wondering, pertaining to the support for the tourism group.
Yep.
Is there anything that's being put in place, or that you can kind of give us in terms of information to still support that? Or?
So the United Counties will no longer be funding them. It was created approximately 10, 15 years ago with the goal of being self-sufficient, and there's been considerable funds pumped in over the years, and they haven't become self-sufficient. Their membership hasn't grown. So we decided to give them the funding for 2020 with the understanding it would be the last year. Discussions I've had with members of that committee, they're really looking at re-envisioning themselves and the role they play to become self-sufficient in terms of members. So they're working on their strat plan right now on how that will move forward. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, so I should have put that on the table first, but mover and a seconder for item B, moved by Councillor Lanthier, seconded by Councillor Ternowski. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Item C, mover and a seconder put on the table, moved by Conseiller Brisson, seconded by Councillor Associé. Questions? Councillor Rai.
Yeah, just if one of the members of the committee, Mr. Ternowski or Councillor Associé, it says it speaks to the 2019 surplus in there, but it doesn't have dollar figures. It says where you're going to put the money, but it doesn't say how much you're putting. Do you know what that surplus was for 2019?
Has that been confirmed? Monsieur Godin, it hasn't been confirmed at this point in time. I think it was just generic that if there is a surplus, they'd like it to go into that reserve. Monsieur Godin?
Merci, M. Maire. Bonsoir, Chairman du Conseil. That's correct. So we're still working on our year end and we're still doing conciliations and stuff, so the final numbers are not known at this time.
Okay. Any other questions?
I guess not. So we'll know as part of our reports, or?
Yes.
Same company.
Okay. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Item D, mover and a seconder, put on the table, moved by Conseiller Brisson, seconded by Councillor Ternowski. Monsieur Leduc.
I'd like to raise a question regarding, they make reference to the historical plaques at the Brick Factory and the New York Central train station. We have yet to speak with the group. I'm not too sure if they're referencing our historical plaque program or they're referencing completely different plaque. I have no clue. I know last year they had some talks about that, but nothing yet in my vision of, we had Amber as a target this year, not necessarily Russell, so I don't know. I have to speak with Mr. Baker and other members to see what's the intent there.
Right.
I wish we don't start creating a parallel
Program.
historical plaque program. I don't think that's the case, but I have yet to discuss further, so we'll arrange for a meeting to discuss further, because maybe, like I said, they really funded a big majority of the cost, so maybe there's the same intent they have in doing that again this year. I have no clue, but I'm just wanted to raise it with council that we will have to discuss further about those two plaques with the museum group.
Right, at this point in time, we just received their minutes, so, but yeah, definitely have that conversation. Councillor Sosi, you had a comment?
Yeah, no, it's not separate. It's just, I think they're just looking at what they would be interested in doing next as plaques, and, you know, they're aware that next one, I think, is going to be in Ambrun. And then that would be, they're just thinking ahead.
Okay.
Councillor Tomasky?
Just a question for Monsieur Leduc. In the minutes, it talked about those James and Connie Johnson will review the memorandum of understanding between the township and the Historical Society to propose any required changes. Has that happened? Monsieur Leduc?
No, it was due to happen last year, I think last February. We have not exchanged any documents yet. We were focusing on revamping the siding and the frontage of the museum. That was our key focus, but we have yet to do that.
Okay, no question? No? Okay, we'll receive it. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Item 11A, Fire Department Quarterly Report. That council receives report Russ M02-2020 dated February 18th, 2020. Questions, comments, members of council? Anything to add from the administration? Chief?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, we have added a little bit more to our quarterly report, and it's a yearly report. Just recognizing we are making sure all our firefighters are being trained at a level 2 NFPA standard. So we showed last year how many we had up to make the level 2. Anytime we're going to hire a new firefighter, we'll make sure we've noted it. Also, I wanted to mention the reduction in the calls in Russell. It was quite extraordinary last year to be down 40-some calls, so it's good. It's a savings in the budget for emergency salaries, but that was quite a big note to be down that many. And the last page, I just wanted to just show you what the percentage is of most of our calls, as far as what our bigger ones are, for alarms and VCs, stuff like that. So.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Chief. Councillor Lorraine, Councillor Tomasky.
I don't know if this is for Monsieur Leduc, Monsieur Godin, or fire chiefs. So I'm gonna ask the question. So the subject is the actual quarterly reports. The recommendation is that we receive the report. How is there a financial implication to receiving their quarterly report? And what is that in there right now? Like, I understand if there's fires, there's gonna be associated water loss, but how is that part of this report? I'm trying to correlate the two.
Monsieur Godin, Chief Armstrong?
I guess that's just to implement the fire loss of the water used in that fighting fires and stuff. So financial aspect, we've always had Richard on there for that purpose.
Monsieur Godin?
Thanks so much. So I think I understand your question, and the financial implication is not necessarily
it's informative.
It's informative. It's not regarding a decision you're making. It's really regarding those reports that are in attachment for all fire losses. Basically, the water used for those fires.
So should that be under the reference or supporting information that there's a water loss and whatnot? Because I would assume that, and this is procedurally, I guess, nothing against the report, more procedurally, that if there's a financial implication, it's to the recommendation, not to the events that have happened. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So we can look at implementing that change next time for Monsieur Leduc.
Well, most likely I see that directly in our reports when we show the quantity of water loss could probably put a price tag right there underneath. Okay. So that would be the best area, the simplest area to show. So we can correct that.
Other questions, Councillor Janoski?
Just a question on the reduction of calls. Is there any rhyme or reason to it? I mean, our population is slightly increasing every year, and
Monsieur Leduc, Chief Armstrong?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, yeah, I guess good prevention and education is a good one overall. For our calls, it was right across. It wasn't just one certain one. It was MVCs, it was alarms, it was everything was down. So it was an overall number, not anything specific. So.
I think there's been instances in the past of a few areas where there was like I can think of a residence that, you know, accidentally was calling false alarms continuously, whether for all services, fire, ambulance, police. So it's always, thank you very much for being brave enough to say you're saving lots of money in the budget. I'm not sure how that'll go over next year, but at least you mentioned it. Councillor Janoski?
so pertaining to the financial implication that we were just talking about in terms of water savings, if there is an impact on the volume of calls, would that have an impact in terms of salaries and so on?
Monsieur Leduc?
Well, I know we have now accepted a formula where we put into reserves any extra savings of HR costs for next year. There's a maximum there that's allowable. Once that reserve maximum is hit, then it goes into a general surplus fund. So unless you apply it to something else, where the fire department may say, well, we do have savings here, but we need something because it's over cost or whatever, they might come up with a justification, then we can go back to council, but normally we just put that to a reserve.
Because even though we had a diminished call volume last year, it could totally flip the other way this year and double, and hopefully that doesn't happen, but at least having a little buffer that was on there, similar to when we do our snow budget every year, there's a reserve just in case stuff happens. Okay, d'autres questions de commentaires? Thank you very much, Chief. Move on to the next item. Item B, removal of part lock control report PD 05-2020. Questions, comments, members of council? No? Anything to add from the administration? Pretty standard stuff? No? Item C, same thing, removal of part lock control report PD 14-2020. Property owned by Beaman Construction Inc., care of Benoit Desforges, and known as 322-324 and 342-344 Moisson Street in Endron. Questions, comments, members of council? No? Okay, we'll move on to the next item. Item D, same thing, removal of part lock control, report PD 16-2020, property owned by Beaman Construction Inc., and known as 404-406 Twilight Avenue in Russell. Questions, comments, members of council? Anything to add from the administration? No? We'll move on to the next item. Item E, 2020 interim tax billing report FS02-2020. The council receives report FS02-2020 dated February 18, 2020, and adopts proposed bylaw to provide for interim tax levies for the year 2020. Questions, comments? Councillor Sosi?
Yeah. Could I just have a clarification on that? Like before it was 4 installment payments and we're going down to 2?
Monsieur Leduc, Monsieur Godin?
Through Mr. Mayor. No, there's still 4 installments. Let me just open up the report. Is that in the report in the bylaw?
I've read that it is just two payments for the tax.
For that,
There's
for
2
the
billings.
interim.
For the interim?
So we have 2 billings. We send bills twice a year.
Yeah.
On each billing, there's 2 payments, so a total of 4.
Oh, okay.
So the interim billing is coming out.
Changing that.
No, not
that
changing.
they have a larger amount to pay. Okay. Thank you.
Other questions, members of council?
I need clarification.
Anything to add, Monsieur Godin? No? Okay. Move on to the next item. Item F, bids and tender report ISPW 02-2020. That council receives report ISPW 02-2020 dated February 18, 2020, and approves the transition to bids and tenders. Questions, comments, members of council? Councillor Janoski.
In reviewing the text with it, it said that contractors were already used to this kind of technology, because it's already being done, so I'm just wondering why we are in 2 stages.
Okay, Monsieur Bourgon?
Well, it's to do it in 2 phases. It's also for staff to do the proper implementation and we're following the type of steps that UCPR also did when they did that type of implementation, and it worked really well on their side. And that's also based on the recommendation from the provider. So the first step will be to do all the original posting online, but we'll still do the closure here like in person. Then after they suggest about a 6-month period, then we do everything would be online.
Councillor Janowski? Did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up.
Okay.
So in terms of cost, like time, is that add-on any burden to staff right now to do both, or they're just transitioning and not doing both at the same time?
Well, with the transition that we will be doing, it won't add more staff work. Since we're already posting on our website, so we'll do the posting through our portal to bids and tender. The rest of the procedure will remain the same. So we're not adding any trouble for us. We will save lots of time once it's like when it's fully operational.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Councillor Larry?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we are able to reach all of our contractors within the municipality to let them know that this is going on. I know that'll be a big undertaking with a lot of self-employed people that we've used in the past and whatnot, but if we're trying to ensure that local business is being included, I think we need to make sure that we take every effort possible to make sure that they get registered onto the site. Understanding there's a cost to them, an annual fee or whatnot, but that at least we've reached out to them and we have a checklist that says, yes, we've reached out to them and they decline, so that if they, down the road, they stop a counselor at the local Tim Hortons or whatever and says, well, I'm not getting any of these contracts, how come? I'm not seeing any of them. Well, you decline to register, so you're not getting them. So as long as we can keep track.
Yeah, so we are working on a communication to send on all the contractors that were pre-qualified and the ones that bid regularly and local companies. But and I can also add that those postings for tender will remain on our website as well.
Directing them towards.
Exactly. So the link will still be available on our website for to advertise when there's opportunities.
I just want to make sure that we're being proactive in ensuring that our local businesses are also being included. And some of them may not be as technologically savvy as others, just based on the fact they've been doing it for many years and that's how they do business. Let's just make sure we're including them.
Monsieur Leduc?
I was going to say, well, I think I was away last week, so I didn't see this report, but probably I could have added here that our education department probably could do a quarterly reminder on our postings. We could put that in the first year, every 2-3 months, to say we've now gone online, and if you are interested in bidding, go to that site. We can have a few reminders like that, and also those who made their names on our list of businesses can probably send them a personal letter about those too. We can certainly add those kind of ways of letting a lot of people know about it, and at least when we launch it for a little while, and then once a year has passed, maybe we can stop that. But for the initial year, we could probably do a little bit more in ensuring that the community knows that we've now gone electronic, so we can do that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leduc. Any other questions? Anything done, Mr. Leduc? No? We'll move on. Item G, Environmental Advisory Committee recommendation. The council received recommendation 2021-001 dated February 5th, 2020 from the Environmental Advisory Committee regarding the blue box transition. Before we start getting into details, we have quite a few recommendations from committees. In having discussions and looking at the recommendations, I think that we'll have to, if council is in agreement, that we start, perhaps we can work on a template for the recommendations, because I look at these recommendations and there doesn't seem to be any context to it. Like, they're recommending something, but why are they making that recommendation? Like in this case, the council received the recommendation. Well, in the recommendation itself, sorry, I'll just bring it up. It says to support the implementation of the blue box transition, but it doesn't give any reasonings why. And I'm a type of person, if somebody tells me you should do this, well, my first natural reaction is, well, tell me why you think I should do this. So I think that we need some context when it comes to these recommendations, and it's for record keeping sake as well. It's similar to a notice of motion when, you know, we put notice of motions forward. You know, we, whereas this, therefore be it resolved that we recommend this. So I think that we could put forward, but just looking at these, I think that's something that we should look at improving as far as a communication standpoint between these committees or who are making recommendations to council and what we expect to see. So, just throwing my 2 cents out there, but Councillor Associate for the Environmental Advisory.
But this is just mandated from the province, so that's the date that, you know, producers are gonna have to start to pay for recycling. It's not something we came up with as a committee, it's.
So I guess.
Monsieur Bourdon has something to
Monsieur
add.
Bourdon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be bringing a full report on that topic in March, which I'll bring back the resolution from the committee as well, part of the report.
Okay. Okay, so I guess, well, I know there's been, we're trying to figure out the rhythm, if you will, with these committees. I think that, you know, we gave the mandate for everybody to look at their committees and see if there was changes to be put forward. I don't think many recommendations or many mandates changed, but I want to make sure that we're getting the most out of our committees. And if we're there to advise council, then they have to give us some proper information on how and why these recommendations are being made. So, Monsieur Leduc?
Maybe I could suggest that we could defer the approval, because now here they're recommending the approval of, and since Mr. Bourdon will bring a report to council next meeting, which will explain this motion. Probably it'd be easier for council to, at that point, approve it by having a further detail of the program, and to show that in the future, most likely it will no longer be municipality funded, it will be totally funded by the producers, right? So, but having no context, I'm sure council understands why it's hard, and we'll bring a report to add to that.
Well, I think it's for clarification purposes as well, right? Because this recommendation says to approve the transition, and then the recommendation to council is that we just receive it. So, you know, we receive it on one end, but if they're expecting an approval from us, like, I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. I'll say that, eh?
Well, that speaks to what's the determining of receive. If we receive it, does that mean we're actioning, right?
No.
So, and if we're actioning it, well, what's the action they want us to take? They want us to approve something, we know what it is. But even going on with all the other reports that are here, I was gonna ask a bunch of those questions going, okay, that's great, you want me to do this. But again, why? And how do you want me to, like, you know, when you go to council and say, well, I want you to do this, well, it doesn't tell me anything as to why I'm doing it or how I'm gonna do it, when I'm gonna do it. Here it says there's a date, but in the other ones there's not. So I just think that, yeah, we definitely have to do something in terms of beefing that up and using the whereas to describe exactly
what's expected.
What's expected.
Okay. Perfect. So in this, Madame Carrie-Laflamme?
Hello, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just to confirm that all of these just say to receive, because like last time it was suggested that we just receive, and then if council wanted another action, then they would decide and give the direction what was to be after. So that's why they are all only to be received for now. And then it's to council to decide if it goes another action or how they want to proceed or a report.
So in this case, this one specifically, environmental, it's just receiving. We know that it's coming back, so we don't necessarily have to defer it because we're simply receiving.
That's it. Yes.
Can I see Larry?
Yeah, then I have a question then with the wording of the actual resolutions themselves. Because what if somebody on the Parks and Rec Committee, they pass a resolution that says, we want council to approve a 20,000 seat auditorium. and so recommend to council. And then council receives that. Well, they're asking to build a 20,000 seat stadium, or whatever it is, or theater. That's their resolution to council. So here it's to approve the transition of the blue box. So us, by receiving that, does that say that we agree with the request?
So receiving is just, you gave us your advice, thank you very much. And if council decides to do something else, then we take that extra step. But in just receiving it, we're essentially saying, thanks, and that's it. I think I have an issue with that as well, is that I'd like to be able to give somehow a clear direction back to the committee saying, you know, we either accepted it and we accept your recommendation, or we gave it to staff to move forward, or, you know, like, I think that's where the chairs of the committees come in, is that when they go back to their committees, they can say, council received the information and did not decide to move it forward. By simply receiving it, we're not deciding to move anything forward at this point in time.
I would suggest that it's, you know, you can stay with the same context, but for all of them that have come in, but you need to add something and request that council pass a resolution committing to such. At least then we know that they want us to pass a resolution to approve. And here we're just receiving it. That's all we're doing, right?
Well, I think that's where and there'll be discussion on the other items. I think that's where the members of the committee or the chair of the committees will come in and say, we had this discussion, you know, the committee is recommending this. I suggest this action moving forward, and then council has that conversation and decides whether they want to move forward.
Okay.
But I think there's work to be done in regards to how the committees are sending the information back to council. Mr. Leduc, I think we can, we'll sit down and we'll try and present something, maybe bring back a report at one point in time. Mr. Leduc?
I want to clarify one thing for council, Mr. Mayor. Staff is just a staff liaison. We're not there to write resolution. We're not there to prepare the decision for the committee. That's what the terms of reference are saying right now, and we're only staff liaison. I know we've been asked sometimes to write, but we're in a situation where do we recommend? By writing it doesn't mean we recommend or support it either. So the chairs have to understand they are to write the resolutions, they are to prepare it for their community members to decide. Until the terms of reference are different, that's what they say right now.
Okay, I see. Okay. Other questions on this one? Councillor Tomasky?
Any clarification, Mr. Leduc, are you asking that we write the resolutions at the committee level without the experience of writing resolutions? We just kind of muddle our way through it? And then the stuff you're going to receive here is going to be even less valuable than what it appears to be right now. That's my concern.
Mr. Leduc?
I understand the concern, but that's why committees do those whereas, they do those researches, they do question before making recommendations. We're there to respond to those questions. Sometimes on some recommendations we are in full in agreement and some are not. So we'd be hard pressed to write something that we don't agree with the committee. So we're in the tough position too, and because we're there just to act as providing information, providing support and typing. But right now we're not part of the committee, we have no voting, we have no decision-making power. So we're stuck in just doing some clerical work here. So that's why the way the terms of references are written right now, we're just there as observers and providing you with some clerical assistance.
Providing information if there's questions relating that they're able to answer from a staff's
Exactly.
perspective.
I know some committees would like to go further, but again, that's why we went ahead and had those terms of reference open for reviews, and almost everything came back as is. So.
That's good. Okay. Councillor Brisson and Councillor Tomasky?
C'est juste pour clarifier, est-ce que vraiment il y a besoin d'une résolution ou un bylaw venant du comité, ou c'est vraiment qu'est-ce que le comité veut? Souvent, si on a une idée pour amener, que c'est juste d'amener l'idée au conseil, de voir si le conseil est d'accord avec cette idée-là, que là, c'est à partir du OK du conseil que là, la résolution est faite pour voir, puis puis si il y a un certain projet, on peut dire, OK, ben oui, on peut continuer à travailler dessus. Parce que, comme elle dit, que ce soit l'auditorium ou que ce soit un autre projet, ils peuvent t'amener l'idée, mais ils ne veulent pas aller trop loin de dire, ben, on veut un pour 2000 places. Quand ils disent, OK, le conseil n'a pas le OK, s'ils disent, OK, ben, nous autres, on recommande ça. C'est pour ça que, sans faire de gros mots.
Ben, je pense que la question devient, c'est quoi le rôle du comité? Because if the committee is just bringing ideas, well, all of us hear ideas from residents all the time. You should do this, you should do that. Staff hear those ideas all the time. I think there should be some context to the idea. I mean, recommending an auditorium come up, the council, a recommendation where we'd like to see a 2,000 person auditorium. Well, that's not part of, we have a business plan for a reason. Council has made the decision where we want staff to work and which projects they want to work on. If it's not part of the business plan, the committee is recommending something on top of the work that's already been established for this year. So do we want to add that, like asking staff to, like if we give direction to staff to look into something, that's not a problem. Staff will do what council asks. But at one point in time, it's a matter of, okay, well, what are we kicking to the side on the business plan, and are we going to concentrate on this? So, Monsieur Leduc? Comment pas?
No.
Okay. Councillor Janoski?
Well, in my opinion, the role of the advisory board is to provide advice, not to make decisions pertaining to whether we go in a direction or not, but the advice that we should look at it, the advice that maybe we didn't consider when we heard it from someone else or made a decision. The idea is that we have residents from our community that are we're talking about this particular aspect, whatever it may be, that provide advice. We might have business plans in place for the coming year, but maybe because of that consideration will be something that we want to bring up next year. It doesn't necessarily mean that they will redirect the whole ship just because they come up with some idea. But it is another way for us to keep a pulse on what's going on. There's many different ways of doing that, but we have this committee structure. And for that reason, I think it's always a question of just, it's a recommendation from the committee to look at something. But we still have to make a decision whether we task staff to look at that, whether we change our priorities or whatever that comes. But it's still just advice coming to us. I don't see it as anything but that, and I think that that's a good thing.
Want to say that?
Yeah, I think the next report actually goes exactly where that is, and it's okay. Well, that's great. You know, if we move on to the next report.
Yeah, I think that they're all grouped together in a sense. But
So, I mean, the next report says, be it resolved that the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee recommends the council to explore the idea of establishing a community garden. So now we have the discussion here to say, do we want to do we want to get staff to look into a community garden? And if we do, then we give direction for them to do that.
which, just to be clear, in this case, we already have because it's actually part of the business plan. So that's what I'm saying. It's part of the staff's business plan. It's being, staff already have that recommendation to work on that, and then it's just coming back to the committee. So, Councillor Janoski?
I think that's amazing, that if our residents in a specific committee are asking for something that we're already working on, it just reinforces that we're going in the right direction. If nothing else, it's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing to bring it up. And so, in this particular instance, if it's already in the business plan, then we pass that on. And it's noted that not only is it supported by council, but it's supported by the PRAC committee, and we'll report back to the PRAC that it's in the business plan. I don't think that that's a bad thing at all.
Councillor Brisson?
Moi, de façon que je le voyais, c'est que avant, que quand c'était dans le comité, on s'attendait comme quoi que le LAFS liaison allait faire l'ouvrage tout de suite, plus ou moins. Parce qu'on disait, ben, on voudrait qu'il y ait, comme le jardin, travaille pour voir si tu peux le faire, tout ça. Tandis que là, en l'amenant avec la recommandation, d'après je peux voir que j'ai pu prendre, c'est que là, la discussion est faite, au lieu qu'on le dit au staff liaison, c'est amené au conseil. Puis là, si le conseil dit que ça soit dans notre plan d'action ou pas, on a de la liberté, le conseil, de dire, OK, oui, comme tu as dit, le jardin, que c'est dans notre plan comme c'est là. Mais des fois, si ça ne l'est pas, tu peux dire, ah, c'est quoi qu'on n'avait pas pensé, que si le conseil est tout d'accord, que là, on demande au staff de faire ça de surplus dans la chose. C'est pour ça qu'on amène la recommandation au conseil au lieu de mettre juste la responsabilité sur le staff.
Ben, pour être clair, advisory committee could never direct staff to do something.
Yeah, I know, but
That's the job of council. But what I'm saying and what I said at the beginning is these recommendations that are coming have to have more context.
Oh, that's for
Say,
sure.
because, you know, recommending to look at community gardens, well, why? You know, is there the public, were you presented a project? Was there somebody that came forward? Did you see this in other communities and think it would be a good idea here? I think there just has to be more context, and that'll be worked out when we put something together. But I think, no, definitely bringing the item up, but again, what my worry is that when you have items that council has discussed and given direction to, I don't want it to be in a position where all of a sudden somebody can bring it to the committee level and then, you know, bring it back to the table. Because our rules of procedure state when there's, for example, a decision is made by council, it's a registered vote, only the people on the winning side can bring back that subject for discussion. We have that procedure in place, and this can seem to be a workaround where I say, oh, well, I lost at the council table, but I still want to push this agenda forward. It's going to the committee level, and then we're bringing, the committee is bringing back the discussion to table. At that point in time, council would, you know, should be saying, look, we discussed this at the table already. You know, members of council made their decision, let's move on, because then you could continuously start bringing stuff back and forth all the time. Conseiller Lorrain, Conseiller Associé, Councillor Jarnowski.
Yeah, after all that now, I might have lost my train of thought, but so we're gonna get all these tonight, we're gonna receive them, and without additional resolutions or amendments to the actual resolutions, by pulling them out, we're not giving any additional direction. Right? We can't sit here and verbally give direction on it, I'm assuming we need to do it by resolution.
That's correct. So essentially what would happen is that if the chair wants to speak to a certain item and council decides we pull it out, chair can pull it out. We can have the discussion separately, vote on it separately, whether we simply receive it or we make an amendment to it to move it forward.
Okay.
That's essentially.
Because I was gonna say, because right now they're just in the regular quote-unquote consent items, and we're just receiving all these, we're not, so, you know, whoever's on these committees are gonna have to go back to the committee and say, well, that's great, the council has received our recommendations, now we need to ask them to actually do something with it. Now that you've received, you know, resolution 2020-002 from the rec committee,
so
now we're asking you to actually go ahead and move forward with it.
So for the sake of saving time, I would anticipate that a chair would want to make an amendment to that resolution to give a direction. And if based on the discussion council has, if he thinks that it's worthwhile making a recommendation, then he does. If he doesn't, then he doesn't make the amendment, and we just simply receive it. And you can tell your committee members that it was brought to council, there was a discussion on the item, it was simply received and no further action taken.
Can I just ask who the chair of the Parks and Rec committee is? That council? So if I have a question on the next one, I would ask the chair of the committee, because that's who Parks and Rec committee recommendation is from. It's not staff.
Right.
Okay.
Councillor Associate?
Okay, I still have a bit of an issue. I totally agree with Councillor Janowski, and I just, you know, the role of the advisory committees. We have all these community committees, and I'll use accessibility as an example. They may come forward with some recommendations because they see ways of making something improved. Same with, we're now compiling a seniors committee. It's gonna be seniors saying, this is what we need in our community, so we're making this recommendation. Otherwise, what is their role? They're just coming here, they sit there at a meeting, and they can't make a recommendation. And this committee has been criticized for not making any recommendations or resolutions, and then it seems like we still seem to have an issue. I think we should be more appreciative of these committees and the people that are giving up their time and that making these.
So, to be clear, Councillor Associate, we are appreciative of these committees and the time they give. All we're suggesting is that they give some clarification to their recommendations. Simply,
Well, I agree with that.
simply saying something and not giving any context to it makes it very difficult on how to move forward. I think from a records keeping aspect, somebody who's looking at, you know, recommendations 5-10 years down the road would like to know where council's head was at that time, and there's no context at all.
No, I
because-
totally agree with that, but what I'm hearing is more like that we can't receive any recommendations from these committees. And to me, like, what do we have the committees for if they can't look at Parks and Rec and say, well, you know, maybe we need a.
I didn't hear anybody say that we didn't want recommendations at all.
Sorry, I'm hearing, I'm sorry.
Conseiller Brisson?
Ouais. Moi, ce que je suggérerais, ce serait juste que quand on a une motion à amener pour les comités, qu'il y avait ce template-là, mais qu'on fasse sûr qu'on demande qu'il y ait au moins un 3 whereas, que ces 3 baissent sur pourquoi qu'on veut avoir, que le comité va avoir ces choses-là. C'est que comme c'est là, ça avait été donné juste ce template-là, c'est pour ça qu'il a utilisé ces choses-là. Il n'y avait pas de template avec les choses, le whereas. Mais si on demande qu'il y ait un minimum de 3 avec therefore being resolved, that the council study that, là, puis je comprends que si on vient avec juste la chose-là, que ça n'a pas, mais avec un minimum de 3, puis que là,
Je pense, honnêtement, in my opinion, I don't think there needs to be a minimum. I think at least one. Like, it could be something very simple, like, whereas this bench is broken and it hasn't been fixed in 6 months, we ask council to look at it. Say that there doesn't have to be a minimum reasons why. Councillor Tarnowski?
Okay, so a couple of points. First of all, procedural question. So if it's just listed here for receiving, the idea that, the way I saw it is that every time it's on here, then we can discuss it. And there may not be, so it's a recommendation coming from the advisory committee. We discuss, and based on our discussion, we would typically say we'd like staff to look at that, or no, we've talked about this before, we don't want to do it, and then it dies on the floor there. But if we want staff to do something with it after receiving, then we automatically have to clear it out. Is that correct?
That would be correct. You'd have to, because you change the recommendation where it be, we receive it and direct staff to.
I understand. So leaving it as received until, if there is a discussion, usually the chair would kind of give additional context if there's not enough context with the whereas, and then we can redirect or say, okay, that's good enough, thank you very much, and then move on.
Yeah, essentially, if we simply receive it, there's no further action taken on the item, that's it. That's
Okay, perfect. Second point that I want to talk about is the issue about bringing something back. So there's an example in here that we'll talk about, the ice time, last minute ice time rentals. So we had discussed this, we had given direction, we had made a decision on that, but there was something that came up with the committee that made total sense. We never even thought of it. It wasn't something that was pertaining to striking instead of PD days. It makes total sense, but because of the way it's written into the bylaw, they can't consider it. So here's a perfect example where there are residents that are living it or that are hearing it and are bringing it to the committee for us to do something about. So in that case, to me, it makes total sense that we allow something to be brought back so that we can improve it, because we're getting at, another kind of point of view that we may have not considered.
Right, so in this case, I don't think, I wasn't referring to this specific item, because I don't think we had a registered vote on this specific item. I'm saying that how we move forward in the future, if ever, my suggestion would be that it could come to the table, but unless a member on the winning side agrees to have it discussed again, then it shouldn't be discussed again. So for example, you're the chair, this topic is brought up to the table, you were in favor of that motion, or of that bylaw, you're allowed to bring it back on the table. If you were against it, then one of the three other members would have to agree that this subject is discussed. And
Just a clarification on that.
On the winning
It's
side.
on the winning side, not that
Yes.
you were in favor or against, that you were on the winning side of the
that
vote. Because that's a difference, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, when you're on the winning side of the vote in that instance, then you could bring it back to the table. I think that would be the tricky part, and we're really getting into the weeds, but we need to be able to understand that that's a possibility. I think there's opportunities to word it, you know, when we review procedural bylaws or we review different things, we can make reference to something like that. I'm not worried about it. But I just don't want it to be, somebody could take an opportunity to try and bring back stuff once it's already been discussed. But, I mean, that's on a registered vote. If there's no registered vote, then it doesn't matter.
Okay, and then final point there is that whereas I wouldn't put a limit number of them. I agree that there should be a rationale, and I think on the template we should add a section for rationale. That makes total sense.
Perfect. Monsieur Leduc?
If I use the example of the environmental committee recommendation, again, I wasn't there to discuss and coach Mr. Mougon how to approach this. I would have said the committee didn't have a timeline here on the recommendation. They knew Mr. Bourgon was coming in a report, or maybe you didn't know, but maybe you did tell her or not, I don't know. But knowing, if you would have known that this report is coming next month, this resolution here has no timeline. It could have passed the same way, and Mr. Bourgon bring it at the same time when he brings his report. So therefore, all the context of the recommendation now makes sense, because now there's a full report on the floor, and also now, and the committee comes in with a recommendation. So since there was no timeline saying that has to be done at the next meeting, then it could have been held in hand and wait till the appropriate meeting to say, okay, now the committee has passed this back in June or in May or whatever date it was, and then having the supporting report from staff to say this is a report, now we put this together as an attachment to the report. So it doesn't need to be brought to the next meeting because you passed it the same night. If you can just pair it with a report, that's even better whenever it's coming from the council. Now they have a full picture, the council can really vote on it and say, yeah, I fully understand now what it means, because like you said, part of the report will say the province is mandating this date, forcing the townships to support this. So you wouldn't have had to explain anything, I think, Councillor Associate tonight. You would have said hand rise, and everybody would have said, I'll go and proceed with the report. So again, we're into a new era of trying to bring recommendations to council, a bit more learning how to proceed, and that's kind of why we're discussing this.
Yeah.
But in this case, you could have waited the next meeting and then support our report with that resolution.
For the environmental one, since we're on it, I think maybe it's just the wording could have been altered and have a request in there. So something like, whereas be it resolved that the environmental committee agrees with the province's transition of the Blue Box program to full producer by this date, or supports that the province's transition to full producer responsibility is January 21st, and recommends to council to pass a resolution in support of that transition. Right? So then you're saying what you want, and then you're saying what you're asking for from council.
Right.
So you support that transition, and you're asking council to do something, right? And then it'll be up to council then to say, we receive this, and then direct staff to come back with a resolution that says the council supports this, right? There should be an explanation and an ask in the resolution that they're bringing to us, right? So it's just, I guess, just the wording needs to be.
We'll work on the format for the committees and make it so it's a little bit clearer for everybody.
And that's probably, education on the councillors as well, who sit on the committees, who should be able to assist with that process. I mean,
Because you could find yourself in a position where the committee recommends something where the chair did not agree with.
Right.
And then we're leaving it up to the chair to come here and try and fight for the committee. Well, at least if it's on paper, then the committee clearly indicates their reasoning, and the chair says, there's the reasons why. It's not up to me to debate it, it's.
That's right.
Right, so, okay. So for the environmental one, we're good. The next one was the community gardens. We mentioned that that's in the business plan. Is there anything to add to that? Any questions, Councillor Chernowski?
Just to give a little more context, it's just the committee did talk about how there's more multi-residential units being developed, and it's something that's seen in other areas, and they would love to support that.
Yeah. Conseiller Bisson?
L'autre question, j'aurais, est-ce que c'est de quoi qu'il faudrait aller avec une survey pour voir s'il y a assez de monde? Ou...
Je pense pas, Monsieur Leduc. On avait eu des discussions avec le Horticultural Society déjà dans le passé.
Oui, ben en fait, dans le plan d'affaires, ça parle que c'est le comité d'environnement qui doit adresser cette question-là, pas le comité de Parks and Rec. Et puis, ensuite de ça, ben, j'ai développé potentiellement un partenariat avec la Société d'horticulture. C'est de là l'idée est venue, peut-être quelques années passées. So that's why I'm pursuing more the environmental committee angle than the Parks and Rec committee angle on this community garden. Again, we have those issues when we create those kind of parks. Does it fall under Parks and Rec afterwards, or so we have to bring some more thought to this as far as which budget and who gets to work on this, and who has resources to deal with those ones. So there's all kinds of issues that need to be discussed, and that was would be my department under the communications. And as you know, our community development officer has been away on sick leave, and this is one of her files to push, and this was not pushed for that reason this year. So I'm looking forward this year to put it back in the plan and keep getting forward. So I appreciate the support of the Parks and Rec Committee. I'm sure at one point they'll be asked, the department will be asked, do they have resources to support this? But I think we need to come into council to show what are different models existing out there, any potential partnerships, what are the estimated costs. Those kinds of things need to be brought in front of council to support this or not.
Yeah.
When we get time to say how big.
Yeah, because I have to admit, when I met with the Horticultural Society, and they gave me their thoughts, there was things that I had never even thought of. And it was kind of like, oh, okay, this is, a document so many pages thick. I didn't think it would be that big a deal. But they had some good points, and, they really looked to their members and had discussions on what would be a great idea, how to move it forward. So that's definitely something I'll come back with the report and the suggestions, recommendations from the committee, or from the staff. Conseiller Brisson and Conseiller Chernowski.
The reason why I did submit this for Park and Rec is just that the idea was that sometime it might be part of a park, that there's a garden. And as you were saying, sometime after the garden is made and it become like the same thing of a park. That's why, and even at first we did look at the possibility of having a joint meeting, and that the next meeting it will be a joint meeting for pursuing things like garden, and there's some others.
Monsieur Leduc?
Well, to me, before our next meeting could be scheduled, council needs to give you direction if that's the case.
Il y a d'autres sujets aussi.
In regards to
Well, they're referencing multi meetings on different things, but I'm given the responsibility of pursuing the community gardens. So if the community starts talking about that, and I'm doing something else on my own.
Yeah, I think at this point in time,
they might want to invite Monsieur Leduc to the meeting.
Yeah, the Parks and Rec has made a suggestion. The committee has made a suggestion to look into community gardens. Staff is already looking into that issue. If Parks and Rec is looking to do something more than that, then maybe that's in the next recommendation to say, we feel there should be more to this than just staff working on. Councillor Chernowski?
So again, I think it's a positive that the Parks Committee wanted to talk about it and bring it forward. And I think from my understanding, it's really more just to add another voice to all the people pushing for something like that. And then, so from my end as a chair, all I would ask is that I have something to go back to them with. As of now, I just said that we are moving forward with looking at investigating it. It's part of the business plan. It's on the radar for staff. I would just ask maybe if Mr. Leduc could give me a timeline. This is part of this year. Is that the only timeline I can get?
Mr. Leduc?
Well, it was supposed to be on a 219 business plan, and I said to council they didn't have the resource to do it, so we did not advance that project this year. But again, in 2020, it's going to be back in the plan. So there'll be further details in the plan once you see it. Probably the next meeting as far as what timeline we put on those projects.
That's good. Councillor Bisson?
Another question that we have thought for garden before you go with society, horticultural society too, and is it if we go with one huge community garden for Russell Emblem, do we go with a few smaller in different park? That would be some question to.
Well, that'll be when the report comes before council. That
Yeah,
will be
but
part of the
that's why I
discussion.
just wanted to share my thought to Mr. Leduc too, that it's something that if he has some discussion with other group, it's something to have their view on. And
Monsieur Leduc?
Ben, je pense que à ce moment-ci, la question, c'est il y a plusieurs types de modèles de jardins communautaires. Il y en a que les gens viennent se servir par eux-mêmes, d'autres qui ont donné des plots spécifiques à eux mêmes. Il y a différents modèles. Donc, mon intention, c'est de mettre sur papier ce qui existe, puis choisir peut-être ce que le conseil veut plus par rapport à comment on va gérer ça, si on va de l'avant avec un ou certains.
Les options vont venir partie du rapport.
Ouais.
Okay. We're okay on this one? The next one is for the recreational trail signage and map. Monsieur Leduc, Madame Guittard, correct me if I'm wrong. I see the recommendation. We've had discussions at the council table before. I thought the direction from council was that we were, it's in the business plan this year to move ahead with the safety signage. And once the safety signage was done, then we'd be looking at that as phase 2, if you will. Am I correct in that assumption?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Safety signage is definitely under Parks and Recreation. And for the signage and the map part, Mr. Leduc was looking into that a week ago, I think. And we've had a brief discussion today, and yes, it would probably be coming after that, after all the safety issues is done. And it might not necessarily be under Parks and Rec. We could assist for sure.
Could be more under communication.
Okay. We need to figure out.
Yeah. But it is on staff's radar, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Councillor Tomasky?
So just to be clear, we're not going to move forward with any signage until safety signage is complete? Is that what you're saying?
Monsieur Leduc?
I would bring a report to council. I will show I have a bigger problem than that right now. Is my existing signs that I have right now, I have nobody assigned to monitor them, no budgets to repair them, no budgets to replace them. So I'm having to look at the existing signs first before installing more and more and more. So I'm gonna have to bring a report to council at one point this year to say which department should be getting resources to manage those signs that we have along the roadways, because right now nobody's got that official mandate to cover or maintain them. So before I want to go there and more, I want to assure that what we have now is taken care of by whom, that we have resources, and then we can take on more of these signs. So that's going to be where that's my angle. I would bring back to council to say, I'm looking at this for sure, but it's going to have to be looking to a bigger context of who's responsible and how much money we have in budgets to address those.
Councillor Tomasky?
So that makes total sense to me. Obviously, in doing so, we're also looking at, sponsorship for signage. How many signs? We don't want to put too many signs and so on. So if I understand correctly, outside of the safety signage, which would have to be there first regardless, and before we move anything with signage, we'll have like a big one main strategy for everything, all different types of signs and so on. And so therefore, that particular approach is something we're gonna do in the next 12 months.
Mr. Ritchie?
Well, our sign needs some attention right now, so as soon as I can do it. I don't have no budget right now, but certainly at least defining which department is going to be responsible, which department is going to take care of them and give a direction to them. Well, I'll bring a report to council shortly this year.
Other questions? Councilor Associates?
Yeah, can you just explain what the map trail signage is exactly?
Conseiller Brisson?
I was the one that did brought it. It's just that whether you go with the Prescott-Russell trail or you go any trail, there's almost all, if somebody from outside comes, there's a map, like a big map, and it says, okay, you're here, and the trail goes up to there, and from here you can see the other park, the other businesses that are related to this. So it's like a 4x8 usually sign that the people are able to relate to whenever they're walking or.
Parfait. D'autres questions? Okay, we'll move on to the next one. It was the Parks and Rec, PRAC versus Rec committees. And the recommendation was, we're just receiving it, but it was to keep the two committees separate. I believe, Monsieur Leduc, councils at this point in time had taken the decision that we were waiting to see what was happening with the avec l'octroi before we would make a decision where we move forward with another committee or not.
Well, Mrs. Guitar and myself, until we have a clearer picture of the grant application, so what are the next steps? We are not recommending at this point to consider a rec complex committee at this point because we don't know exactly what they'll be doing. So that's why to avoid having people meet for no reason, we recommend to council to suspend this committee until there's further detail about this project. Once this project we have more information, then council will be asked, do you want to reset this committee or leave it under the PRAC or have new committees like we did with
Ms. Goldstone?
Yeah.
Okay. But at this point in time, I'm assuming there was discussion at the PRAC committee and they're recommended keep them separate if ever we move forward. Is that a fair assumption?
That's correct. No immediate action. It was just they believe that they should be separate.
Okay. Conseiller Lorraine and Conseiller Brisson?
Since it was mentioned, do we have a time frame on a notification about that grant?
So
I've heard many different things in the community that people are thinking, and
I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, originally it was supposed to be February 12th? No?
It was always said winter 2020. So what is winter 2020? It could be February, March, April. There's no specific date. That's for the provincial intake. For the federal intake is summer 2020.
But
So we have no specific date.
so it just said winter 2020
That's right.
and summer 2020.
That's right.
But we've heard, I believe at the conference, unfortunately I wasn't there at the conference, but Mr. Leduc, you can share.
Yeah, out of delegation, they were saying that the winter notification might be delayed till June for the province recommendation to the feds. So when will the feds afterwards come in and make their list known to us? That's again stretching time. So at this moment, we don't anticipate that we'll have an answer before June. That's what
on the provincial side.
On the provincial, that's what the ministry people kind of told us.
And the federal, you said again, originally was
Summer.
Yeah.
So it could be fall 2020. Okay.
Potential. Okay. Conseiller Bisson?
La seule raison que j'avais fait amener des choses pour savoir aussi pour les deux comités, c'était juste savoir si les membres du comité étaient tout enthousiastes de participer dans la chose pour le REC aussi. On savait que c'était pas de suite, mais au lieu qu'il y ait pour avoir leur point de vue, et quand ils ont eu la réunion, j'ai su comme quoi que la majorité, c'est ça, ils disaient, ils étaient là pour les parcs, que l'aréna, comme Le complexe sportif, pour eux autres, ça leur disait pas autant. Fait que c'est pour ça que quand je voulais l'amener pour discussion, parce que quand il y avait eu la première discussion, ça avait l'air de dire, ah ben, tout se bien l'avoir là, au lieu d'avoir une duplication des deux. Ça fait que c'est pour ça que c'était juste pour faire clair. C'était pas pour faire tout de suite, là, mais c'est bien.
Okay, merci. Next one, Parks and Rec, the Franco-Ontarian flag for the arenas. Some context, Monsieur Tonoski?
Yeah, so it was just brought up by one of our members that flag is typically flown in all of different arenas, but in our arena, it's not there. Just that, requesting that we.
And it was the dollar of that.
So
I've noticed it.
I'll ask the question, Madame Guital. Do we have flags in our arenas? And which flags do we have if we have any?
I strongly believe that we have Canada flag in both arenas. And to my knowledge, that's the only one. We don't have any provincial or municipal flags.
In Russell, I believe you have the Russell flag in there.
The Russell flag?
Yeah, there's a Russell flag.
Okay.
From back, yeah.
From
Back.
2008, 9?
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. There's a little one around here somewhere, I know.
Yeah,
I've seen it. So
Oh,
it's,
that one, yeah,
The
yeah.
beaver.
The township one, okay.
No.
Well, I call it the township,
It's
sorry.
the Russell
Okay,
one.
yeah, yeah. With the beaver.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
so I know that
It
one.
could be, yeah. So-
To be honest, I always thought there was a Franco-Ontarian flag in both arenas.
It's the dollar that's.
So perhaps what we can do is just, maybe just give direction to staff to look and see what's able, are they, like I know here we have flagpoles, I don't know what the infrastructure is at the arena, do we have the infrastructure in place to put up more flags? or-
Well, we could put them on the walls where we put the banners. We don't have any flag poles outside, we don't have any of those. And inside, it's not really, I think it would be better to install them on the wall.
On the wall?
Yeah.
So there's no implications as far as infrastructure needed to do so?
No, I think Amber would be okay. Obviously, it's always better when we have no ice, because
Right.
if it's in that area, we will not go on the ice with a lift, that's for sure. We'll wait until April, when the ice is out.
So then I would make the suggestion that if we're gonna put up the flag, then we put up all the flags. We put the Canada, we put the province, we put the municipality, and we put Franco-Ontarian.
Okay, we'll have to look into the space we have, because
Yeah.
where the banners are, sometimes the space is
I will
pretty.
give direction to come back to council with an
Options.
idea for the 2020 season.
Okay, so,
That's one.
Councillor Sosi?
Yeah, because you need the room for the, like when they win and they
The
have their,
banners, yeah.
their regular
Yeah.
team banners.
Yeah.
And,
I only had 5 of them to put up last year.
well, that's
So-
what I'm saying.
It was a successful year.
There goes your flag space.
So we'll,
Coaches like,
So let's just say there's from the B team, the PWB team, there's 5 more already coming this year, so.
so let's, item K,
Okay.
let's remove that one, and then that one will be able to amend to give, direction to staff on how to proceed. Okay. Last item, last minute ice rental recommendation, some context on this one, Councillor Janoski?
Sure, so with the current labor issues with schools and striking, it was asked if we can use the last minute ice rental policy to apply to students that may be out of school because of strike. We were told that our policy, the way it's written, is only for PD days, and so therefore this is a good example of something that we recommend to adjust the bylaw to allow for different types of situations like strikes.
Just to, okay. Councillor Alex?
I'll request to pull out L, so we can add a amendment or a resolution or a direction to it. I suggest that we add in, if the bylaw today or the policy today is PD day, then we should put in snow day, we should put in strike day.
Just remove it. remove it, the type of day, just say last day, within 24
Or just say,
hours.
I don't know.
I think,
I wholeheartedly agree.
Subject to availability.
I think that I would like to hear the staff's opinion and perhaps give direction to staff to come back with a report to give us an idea what the implications or the potential implications could be. But we'll separate it and we'll have the discussion afterwards. Okay. Next item, item 12, we have none. Item 13, we have none. Item 14, question period on meeting of the day.
No, skip it. Not if you don't skip. No one needs to see that.
No one, yeah. Is it on? Just one question, it's about the interim tax levies. Are the interim tax levies, the 50%, based on the forecast 2020 levies or the past year's levies?
Monsieur Leduc, Monsieur Godin.
Through Mr. Mayor. So they're based on the previous year's levies.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Okay. Thank you. Move on to the next item, 15, resolution, motion that council approves all recommendations listed on the agenda under number item 11, reports from departments and council committees. I need a mover and seconder to put it on the floor. Moved by Conseiller Brisson, seconded by Councillor Chinoski. And we are looking to have amendments to remove K and L, so just les deux là. Need a mover and a seconder to remove K and L, moved by Conseiller Lorrain, seconded by Councillor Saucier. All those in favor to remove K and L? K and L are removed. Okay, so we'll vote on everything else except K and L. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. So let's go back to K for the Franco-Ontarienne flag. So we have a resolution to receive. I need a mover and a seconder to put it on the floor. Moved by Conseiller Lorrain, second by Councillor Chinoski. It's now on the floor. Amendments? Conseiller Lorrain?
That council directs staff to review all flags in both arenas and to come back to council with a plan of action to put flags up in the arenas in the summer of 2020.
Monsieur Leduc?
While we're at it, is there a reason why we're not considering the dome?
I think we have.
And the dome.
I think, how about a review of our, do we have a flag policy? We have a flag policy that.
For here.
For here.
Is it? Maybe we should
Well, maybe it's just looking at the flag policy and looking how we implement changes within the township. Would that be simpler?
I don't know what it is, so.
Okay, well, because if
Well,
we're
we'll have to
talking
look
about
at it.
flags, so maybe it's just an amendment for staff to review the flag policy and bring a report back to council.
Including the installations in recreation facilities.
Okay?
Will that work? I'm asking the chair and the vice chair.
So we have a move by Conseiller Lorrain, seconded by Councillor Chinoski. Everybody okay with the amendment? We'll vote as amended. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, item L for the Parks and Recreation, last minute ice rental recommendations. Need a mover and a seconder to put on the floor. Moved by Conseiller Brisson, seconded by Councillor Chinoski. It's not on the floor. Questions, comments, or amendments? Go. Conseiller Brisson, Councillor Chinoski.
He's the one.
Councillor Chinoski.
So I'd like to propose that we amend the previous resolution so that we just go based on last minute ice rentals, subject to availability. So when we say subject to availability, it's up to the staff whether they're available or not, and subject to availability, and last minute being like within 12 hours or within an hour's notice. So in order to not devaluate the current rental rates and so on, the last minute has to be like last minute, and it has to be subject to availability.
Same day, maybe?
Yeah, same day, yeah, within, 5 hours or whatever. And then it adds that, then it provides you something where it's incremental. If there is no staff person that's assigned there, then it can't be done. If there is a staff person that's there, and it wouldn't have been sold anyways, it's added revenues. And we're providing that service to our community. I think it's a great idea.
Great. Staff, Monsieur Leduc?
I'd like to kill maybe a perception up there that when there's no person on the ice, that the staff are there waiting on the bench.
Subject to availability.
I'm just saying that I like to address the perception that staff are just there not doing anything. They're either assigned to another property, to another location, or something else. And now they're not waiting there for somebody to call and hit the ice. So it's not necessarily lost revenues if staff are not there because they're carrying out other duties. I just want to make sure that the perception is not there, that staff are waiting for something to happen.
Okay. Councillor Lorrain?
So my question will be, if staff are out doing other duties, how long would they need to get from one location to the arena to be able to do the ice for that rental? I mean, I guess be there for that hour or that 2 hour time frame, right? Because if we're gonna allow last minute ice, and last minute defined as same day, to me is considered last minute, right? And I have to assume up until the end of March or mid-March to April that any of these requests would be non-prime, because all of our prime ice is sold for the most part, right? All of our prime ice is pretty much sold based on the hockey associations, broomball, ringette, and men's league, women's leagues, and all that. So we're talking prime ice during, or non-prime ice during the daytime hours. I'm in favor of this, you know, based on availability. You know, if they are there, great. If not, then if somebody calls in at 10 o'clock and says, "Can I have the ice at 11?" Well, no, we're not there at 11. Well, we could be there by 12. Will 12 work? Yes. Okay, perfect. Like, that's based on subject to availability. That's what I understand it as. Not, no, you need to be there for 11 because the arena's open and I want to go. No, we need to have somebody there to be able to do it. And then I'm fine with that if we word it that way. So I would say we need to define what last minute means. I would suggest it's same day as the definition, and you get rid of the PD day or whatever the special day that it's in the bylaw now, and gets changed to just last minute ice means same day, and it could be any day of the week that somebody calls up and says they want ice, and you say, yes, it's available at 3 o'clock or whatever day it is. Anyway, that's what I think.
Madame Dupont?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council. So if I go back when we voted this back in December, November, I think it was December, we had defined the last minute for snow days. That's what it was, for snow days. And we understood that it was during non-prime time hours only. Because I see March break coming up, we have no ice time booked. Everything was given back by the minor sports. So this means technically they could call in at 4 and get some ice time at 6:30, which becomes prime, and we would have to give it to them at 1:30. So maybe it would be better to define non-prime hours usually it's between 8 and 4. That's one thing. Under the other user fee that we had adopted back in November, we were clear that the adult booking the ice had to be accompanied by children because it was for snow days. So are we keeping this, or are we allowing an adult to book for, let's say, a bunch of his friends or her friends coming in to play shinny hockey for all adults, local adults? Do we keep this for out-of-town people? So we have to be precise on because this is what we did back in December. We were very precise on the conditions. So do you want us to draw another section of the user fee for this? I understand you don't want any particular day mentioned, but do you want those conditions to stay?
I guess the question that I have is, and I don't mean any disrespect, please don't think I am, but if we have March break and the hours are wide open and we have no ice sold, and somebody calls up on the day and wants 2 hours at 6 o'clock, and we have people there, why wouldn't we sell it to them as last minute ice at that point in time? If it's same day. Same rules apply if calls up the day before, no, it's regular rate at prime rate for adult. If they call up the same day and that ice is available, why wouldn't we sell it? That's, to me, it makes absolute sense that we're maximizing our ice availability, and somebody's taking the chance that it's available that day, right? And because it could be sold off the day before, So if somebody calls in same day, whether it's prime or non-prime, I mean, for the most part, we're going to talk non-prime, but in the case of March break, in the case of over Christmas, in the case of whenever the ice is open and there is prime ice available, and they call up same day, yeah, let's sell it.
So I'm not close to the idea by any means. I'm open to the idea. That being said, I would want to see it implemented and evaluated a year after, and I'm going to look at the numbers and say, okay, what were our numbers last year and what are our numbers this year? Because based on this mentality, we should be renting more ice and we should be selling more. But sometimes there's unintended consequences, and we all know that there are those type of people that like to play the game, and if I can save $20 here or $10 here, I'll wait last minute and I won't book it ahead of time anymore. I'll just book it that very day to make sure that, maybe I'll lose out, but chances are I won't lose out. Like, we have to be able to look at it from a financial standpoint and say, okay, we implemented this decision, what was the outcome? Did it have the desired effect? If it didn't have the desired effect, then we'll have to reevaluate that decision.
I am wholeheartedly in favor of, if we want to look at it from September 2020 or August 2020 through April 2021 as a test for all of this, I would absolutely agree to it, and I for one think that you'll absolutely find people that will be purchasing during that time, and it will increase revenue. But the one thing that we need to do is make sure it's advertised, it's promoted, right? That there is last minute ice. Like, I'll be honest with you, on strike days and anticipated snow days, I get 5 emails from the city of Ottawa, whether it's the Bell Sensplex or the Richcraft Sensplex or the Kavanaugh Sensplex. Last minute ice, amped. Last minute ice, special, let's go. Snow day special, PD's day special. If we're not doing that, then yeah, you're not going to see the results. But if we're doing stuff to actually promote the last minute ice, especially on snow days, strike days, and stuff like that, then I think you will see it.
But there's an impact to that, right? Because if you're advertising, you're sending out emails, you're saying that we're making sure there's a staff member there to do it, when that's not necessarily the case.
It's based on availability though, right?
Right, but it's hard to advertise, say, hey, we got last minute ice time, and he calls in and says, hey, I want it for 12 o'clock. Are you going to book an employee to be there when you're advertising, specifically knowing you're not sure if he's actually going to be there or not?
You're not advertising the hours, you're advertising that you have a policy in place for last minute ice. Or you post it up in the arena. Like, do something with it, right? Is what I'm saying. So that people know they can go to the arena and they see, you got a last minute ice rate. Fantastic. Snow day, boom. Last minute ice. Like, it's work in conjunction, right? We want to make sure we increase the revenue, which is the objective. I don't believe it's going to reduce revenue. I think it's going to increase revenue. Because for the most part, 90% of your revenue is your minor sports and your men's leagues. That's almost all your revenue. This is just those extra spots where minor hockey had to give back 3 hours for a certain day, or on Thanksgiving Day when there used to be people there. Things like that. March break, end of season extra ice that we're not able to sell, and we're not getting any revenue for. Well, now we may be able to get some revenue for. Right. That's what I'm looking to do. I'm not trying to add any more space to or time commitments or staff cost to do it.
No, but I'm just saying there is the potential for unintended consequences. We did make changes allowing people to give back ice time, and we saw a dip in revenues because of that change that we put in place. So I'm just making sure I don't want to repeat that error where now we're losing revenue that we have.
counter that argument, and we have to see if that was actually the case, based on the previous year's projection, or previous year's numbers. But I understand your comment, and I understand where you're going, and I agree.
Councillor Janoski.
Le point que je me demandais, c'est que là, on dit que c'est un certain montant quand c'est last minute ice. Est-ce qu'on peut dire que c'est un comme 10% off, ou whatever que le montant que c'est, que quand c'est prime time, et même s'il est off comme last minute, il va être plus cher que le non-prime time?
You could almost say, instead of a prime time ice, if it's last minute, then we'd allow it at the regular rate as opposed to the further discounted rate.
Or just a discount by percentage, so that percentage is equal from prime rate or regular rate.
It's okay.
That makes sense.
Because instead of saying, okay, you calculate, it's maybe a 10% off, because you have it now at non-prime time, but if you say it's a 10% off, you're selling it higher.
10% is enough, but.
Non,
Well, the percentage could be
it's pas comme que ça soit 50%, whatever the
I think
percentage.
but
It's just to, that way, whenever it's last minute, if it's in prime time, they will pay a bit more than the one that has it on non-prime time.
So, I think to move things along here, this is an action, this is a bylaw. So we actually have to change a bylaw. It's not something we can do spur of the moment this evening. I would suggest that we make an amendment giving direction to staff. They've taken notes of the discussions we had to bring back a report with these proposed changes. Councillor Janoski?
I agree. I got just two quick points to make. This is awesome that we have a PrAC committee that brings up these recommendations. First of all. Secondly, I wanted to say also, as we ask staff to go back and bring us recommendations, but we remember that obviously the financial impact is there, but we do have a pillar on service, and I think from a service perspective, it's important that we look at that from that perspective as well. So being there, being available last minute, it's a win-win all around. So it's not a question, and if some people want to take advantage of it, because they figure out they can save $20, and they keep booking last minute once a week, well, so be it. They'll be booking a lot more than they used to in the past.
Okay, so let's Councillor Lorraine, and we'll bring this back at a future report.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at, we have a bylaw in place for a certain dollar amount for the last minute ice. I think it's $100, isn't it?
No, it's not.
No. It's gotta be
Yeah,
less.
because non-prime is what, one?
No, but prime, yeah, but there's non-prime and prime, but then there's the last minute ice that we did.
It's cheaper than a
I believe
non-prime.
it's 100 or 90 or something like that, right? So whatever that incremental difference between the non-prime and that last minute, can we figure out by percentage what that is from prime to last minute, so that it's the same percentage discount. So if it's $100 for last minute and it's $150 for non-prime, then it's $200 for prime, then it's $150 for prime last minute.
To keep the same ratio.
Right. So just wanted to give more direction to that number so that administration knew what we were thinking there.
So this could be changed to, the council receives recommendation number 2020-005 from the Parks Advisory Committee dated February 10, 2020 with respect to last minute ice time. And council gives direction to the administration to bring back a report at a later time. Is that clear enough? Councillor Janoski?
I just have one little challenge to this, is that there's a strike issue going on right now. Is there anything we can temporarily do just to allow that temporarily right now? For anyone that's on strike?
Madame Dupont?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We've been adding some public skating when we have strike days. We added some last week. We're gonna be adding some more for Friday in both arenas. So, and both outdoor rinks are good to go, so that's more time for them.
There is options.
Sorry?
There is options outside of renting the ice. there is options with the outdoor rinks and this
Yes,
public
yes.
skating.
We're trying to add some more public skating, because we know in advance when those
And
strike
shinny?
days are coming. Sorry?
Yeah.
And shinny?
We could.
Yeah, that's, I would agree with that.
Yeah, we could do 1 hour of public and 1 hour of shinny. The only thing with shinny, we can't do all age groups, obviously, because we have 3 different age groups. So at one point, it could become problematic, because some parents don't like the 4-year-old to play with the 12-year-old, but
Maybe half-hour shinny for.
so but
maybe
you know,
about
there's
a half
always
hour?
the outdoor rink, so at one point, everybody has to
Have
accommodate at each other.
Okay. Councillor Sosi?
Yeah, I was looking for this, because we had done a Facebook post, of additional public skating hours
Yeah.
on PD days,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
it's been posted,
Yeah.
and I've been
Yeah.
sharing it,
Yeah.
and so, you know, we have done the advertising.
Yes, we've done that, and we've done it for the last 2 strike days. And strike days are different for French and English. We're trying to accommodate everybody.
So I need a mover and a seconder for an amendment. Move Councillor Tarnowski, second Councillor Laraine. Everybody in favor of the amendment? We're good? Okay, all in favor as amended? Okay.
That's it. I
Madam
just
Clerk?
want to add, we've also added some public turf.
Some public turf during the.
Because it's not everybody that wants to play hockey.
Correct. Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay. We'll say the next item, item 16, bylaws. Motion to council to approve bylaws 2020-17 to 2020-20, inclusively for first, second, and third reading as listed on the agenda. Need a mover and a seconder, moved by Councilor Laraine, seconded by Councilor Sosi. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. New business reports, we have none. Item 18, myself, duplication of programming. I had a little bit of discussion with Councilor Tarnowski. This is in regards to the relationship between our administration and the library administration. It was brought to my attention that we've had some programs that Parks and Rec was running, and then the library would turn around and offer the same type of programming for free. So then it's like, well, why are we essentially paying one budget to offset the other budget? Like, I think there has to be some coordination between our administrations to, you know, we have a programmer on the library side and we have a programmer on the municipal side. Like, there has to be some ways to find efficiencies or to work together. And I think, Councilor Tarnowski, you had sent me a message that you guys had this discussion at the library board.
That's correct. We did have the discussion of the library board, and we've recommended to funds to reach out to Celine, so we can have maybe even a joint meeting, or invite Celine to the library board and present what the township is doing. I believe that there is a real openness to want to collaborate, and I think there's opportunities to collaborate even with other committees to do some more joint kind of programming, and where there is duplication, to eliminate it. It makes total sense. No argument there.
I think there's opportunities here. Like, you know, it's a unique situation because it's 2 separate entities, if you will. In some aspects, they're merged. You know, like I look, for example, at our salary structure, the municipal salary structure. We have those library positions in our salary structure, but they're not municipal employees. So there's, you know, we got to look at how to work together. I think we need a clear contract, if you will, because we have a contract with the library board. Correct me if I'm wrong, for the building itself.
No, not yet.
Not yet. We're working on it. Like, you know, but we're
planning to have one.
We're planning to have, because I looked at, you know, we have agreements with the Ag Society, we have agreements with the school board, which are different entities. The library is considered a different entity. It's the municipality that funds it completely, but it's still under its own act. It's outside the municipal act, it has the library act, so it is something separate, but I think there's opportunities for the 2 administrations and the board and council to make sure we're giving the right direction, that we really want to see the 2 sides working together, because at the end of the day, it's one taxpayer who's paying for everything. So the last thing I think we should do is have things being repeated back and forth. Another example is the IT services. We pay the United Counties for IT services, yet the library board has their own IT services. Is that a way to find some efficiencies? Councillor Janowski.
Certainly you'll find that the library board is open to anything that could benefit financially in terms of services. Everybody on the library board, I know I speak for the library board, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a big support right now to open that. So I know even in terms of our auditing our financial statements, we're going with Township, the auditors with the Township, or the HR policies, and we're trying to eliminate a lot of that previous duplications. So wherever possible, we are definitely open to it.
Yeah, good, because that's another thing, right? Policies. We have a policy, the board has a policy. It might save yourselves the trouble and say, well, the board policy is the municipal policy, unless there's tweaking to be made, but I think, or it's applicable. Councillor Associate?
Yeah, I was just curious what examples was of the duplication of a course.
Madame Dupont?
Well, there was a knitting class and a Lego course. We had to cancel our Lego course last fall. And I don't blame the residents if there's a course that is no charge. I would definitely go.
They do charge for most of them, but it's minimal. It's like $10.
So we have to pay. For us, it's very minimal too, but we still have to pay an instructor to be there and coordinate the program. So there is a fee attached to that, and the purchase of the material if we need to.
I think having those dialogues will perhaps
definitely.
Mr. Leduc, you come on.
Just again, I have been discussing this for a little while now as to how to approach this, because there's always this duplication issue regarding are they municipal employees or not. And some issues they are, and some of them they're not. Duplication of policies, duplication of services, a lot of things. I don't know if we charge them payroll fees for the payroll, but if they're not our employees, then we should be charging for them. Those kind of things that we charge other departments, we should be charging the library the same thing. So there's a lot of things that need to be discussed here, and Mrs. Seguin is willing to sit with me and discuss those. So there's many issues that she's trying to work out her immediate priorities, and once she's done those, we'll start discussing more of those issues and bring it to council's attention or her council's attention. Her board attention whenever we're ready to go there.
Okay. And if ever the administration feels they need some kind of feedback from council and the board, then we can make the recommendation to appoint one member from each side and work with the administration and the board in trying to bring those relations closer together. Okay. Everybody's good with that? Okay, thank you very much. Item 19, public consultations, hearing none. 20, closed session, there's none. 21, confirming bylaw, that bylaw
2020-021.
021 being a bylaw confirming the proceedings of the Council of Corporation Township of Russell at its regular council meeting held on February 18, 2020. Be read a first, second, and third time and passed. You mover and a second, moved by Councilor Janowski, second by Councilor Buisson. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Our next regular public meeting of council will be held on Monday, March 2nd, 2020. We are adjourned at 8:05 p.m.